emotional intelligence is, and just how critical it is for me as a person, just to be self-aware, to understand other people, and to also understand how emotions play in, especially as you lead people and as you make decisions, because your state of mind, your feelings, your emotions affect you whether you are aware or not. So I hope that we will stay in for the session. We will be engaged. We will ask questions and also benefit from the conversation we're going to have with Vicky. Just some housekeeping around the CPD points. Why we started the series, we are going to have 10 free webinars. We had one last week. This is our second one. We will keep you informed as we continue to organize these sessions. We had requests from members because compliance with the HRMP Act is twofold. It is membership subscription and it is continuous professional development. So our members will pay for their subscription. For the longest time as an institute, we have not been very strict on continuous professional development, but now that is in the past. This year, members went online and they could pay but not access their certificates for 2024 if they had not filed their CPDs for the year. And so we got a lot of concerns. Members said, please give us some time. Let us put our house in order, then we can progress with this. And with the guidance of council, we got an extension up to March of this year, end of March. And to facilitate that and make sure that everybody is up to speed, which is a common practice. We have seen ISPAC do that. We have seen LSK where they just have special training sessions to support members just acquire their CPD points. So that is what we hope to do in the next 10 series. So we have 8 more to go. And once you attend, because we have your data and we'll be sharing a link also on this platform, just to make sure that we capture everybody, because booking and registration is one thing, attending is a different thing. And so we want to have accurate data so that we can update your portal. So when you see on the page, and Catherine will keep guiding you once that link is shared, we request you to sign in and just leave your name and your details so that we can just reconcile the data that we have, and we will automatically update that data on your portal so that anybody who will have attended this series plus what they had filed as their CPD points, we will add on to it. And so by March, you'll be able to see how many CPD points you have, whether you have attained the 10 that are required for you to renew your membership. And we will then lock the certificates. Sawa, we will have demonstrated that we have supported you, be compliant. So the certificates by the end of March, if you will not have gotten the certain CPD points, then access will be limited. So we are encouraging members, tafadhali, and share with your colleagues who are not here to just update their membership, renew their subscription, and make sure they are also having their CPD points. There you go. If you look at your chart, there is a link that Catherine Boro has shared. It says kindly fill this attendance list. So kindly, as we go on with the session, just click on that link and you will be able to fill that. Catherine, can I be heard? Hesbon Njaga says no sound. Am I audible?
We hear you.
We can
Okay, so
hear you.
Hesbon. All right, so Hesbon, please check your sound. It could be your network. The rest of the team says I'm audible. So with that, I think we don't want to take so much time. Let me hand it over to Catherine, who can invite our facilitator, Vicky Karoga, to go ahead with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene, for that those brief comments. I believe in the respect of time, I would want to give the floor now to Vicky to share with us what she's been preparing for this hour or so. I believe we'll have a lot of questions either during or after, and Vicky will give us an opportunity to ask those questions. And if there's one that is burning as she keeps going, just keep it in the chat for her to note and get back to you. Vicky, this is your time. Karibu.
All right. Thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you very much, Irene, and good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. Hoping you're having a lovely afternoon today, and all things considered, that the weekend is looking promising, or a place, something that you want to do. So my name is Vicky Karuga, and I am really honored to be here and privileged to have a discussion around emotional intelligence. And as it has been introduced by Catherine and also by Irene, a really key tool when it comes, a really key skill when it comes to what we're calling the future world of work. So I will talk about EI, and I'll have a few slides to share. And as we go through the session and you have any questions, please feel free to put them in on the chat. Possibly, if I don't take a note of them, Catherine, maybe you can just hide for me. But I will be looking at my chat to see if there are any questions that are coming through. So sometimes I know when we're going through the concepts, someone will want to chat and ask a question on that particular slide that we are discussing. And I actually prefer it so that we can be able to tackle whatever a clarification or maybe just a comment that you would like to make or to have at that particular time. So without a lot more conversation from my end, allow me to share my slides. And there we go. Okay. So what we're really going to be talking about today is a general introduction into the topic of emotional intelligence, what it is, and then we'll also talk about, towards the end, what it really isn't. And even as I cover the slides and I cover the content, I'll probably be pointing out already some of the things you'll notice that emotional intelligence isn't. So for me, when I speak about emotional intelligence, or even when we teach about it in our various forums, I link it to what I call sustainable leadership. And sustainable leadership could be sustainable leadership for yourself, or it is sustainable leadership of others. So in all our spheres, in all our areas of influence and control, we are first called to lead ourselves. So in the different aspects of your life, how are you leading yourself? How are you tackling the issues that you are finding? And then in the grand scheme of things, in the people that have been put for you to influence, how are you leading others? And when we talk about sustainability in leadership, it's really about, for me, it has been about these 6 principles for anyone in any position where they're influencing others or leading others. If you're to think about sustainably being able to carry out your role, your work, wherever you are, one of the things that you must start to have in the future world of work is a general worldview, the general understanding of the ecosystem that you belong to, the general understanding of the systematic or systemic issues that you belong to, and then a general understanding of what is the long-term goal. For you as an individual, the long-term goal is probably a broader vision of how you see yourself. I think when I speak to this topic, I usually ask guys, within the next 10 years, who do you see yourself as, in terms of even what will you be doing? And what of that person are you already practicing now? So you have to move from the micro and go to the more macro view to enable yourself to make proper decisions at the micro level now that speak to the future that you want to see. The second thing, which we have been told many a times, is about networking. And networking is about creating a consistent connection with people of different areas, of different spheres of influence. And networking is not a matter of an event. It is something that you're constantly doing. So when you meet someone, what habits do you have around ensuring that this person remembers you? Usually, it's not about who you know, but it's about who knows you. Who did you spend enough time with for them to think that you are memorable enough? When you think about our president, it's not about us knowing him. We all know him, but does he know you? And that's just, a discussion about it on another realm. But basically, networking is so that you are able to connect with people who can provide you opportunities, or you can also provide them opportunities. You can work together. You can develop certain avenues of collaboration together. And that's really an aspect of the future, because everything that we're doing, information is already available. Who knows, tomorrow you might find yourself importing baobab oil, something you never did. And maybe it's because you were able to speak to someone who told you baobab oil is now the thing, but you had a connection somewhere you didn't realize could help you with baobab oil. So it's also about being able to network. It's also about working across boundaries. So if you're going to be a person who lives sustainably, it's about breaking down the walls that make our work more difficult. So if you're, for example, talking about your own internal operational networks, and you're talking about this is HR, and HR in an organization, you have HR, you have finance, you have the person doing procurement, maybe you have the other person who's probably the technical aspect, digital marketer. Some of these people you might not be working very easily with, but if you recognize the fact that for you to be effective at any level, at any time, any boundary that exists, whether real or imagined, between you and somewhere else really does not serve you and does not serve the work that we do. So sustainable leaders spend a lot of their times working across boundaries, breaking down those walls and establishing connections, whether those boundaries are interdepartmental, whether those boundaries are even organizational, trying to find out what are other people doing, or even sometimes regionally, if that's the case. And then the fourth one is sustainable leadership tries to exercise influence without authority. I mean, there have been a lot of things written out there about compliance and extrinsic motivation, which is not sustainable. It makes you tired. People get at some point, people get very tired of being compliant because people want autonomy over their work. People want to follow you because they feel you're authentic, you care about them, and so they're able to do the things that they're doing because they feel like they're collaborating with you on a level of mutual trust and respect. So you're possibly trying to hone the skill of always influencing others, whether it's your peers, whether it's people who directly report to you, or even whether it's you versus the leaders or the managers that you're working with. And then the fifth thing is that this world of VUCA, as we keep calling it, is very complex. Today we have ChatGPT, tomorrow we have another one. Today we have CPD points in this way, tomorrow we're required to do something else. Today we have anything. Google tells us now you can log in this way. There's just so much. And you come to the office, the young people are asking you, have you logged on to digital transformation? Every single day is a day for change. And if you are not changing with the environment, if you're not accepting the complexity of how work is going to be, then you're not being agile enough to be able to cope with the demands that are going to come. So now not only do you have the stress of really fulfilling your tasks, but also understanding how can you be more efficient and how can you understand the complexities that are now involved, which also at the same time, once you understand them, become very simple for you to have sustainable self and leadership. And then last but not least is the importance of leading yourself. So leading yourself comes primarily from a self-awareness angle. And this we'll discuss a bit more as we go through the story of emotional intelligence. So I'll start by setting a case for why emotional intelligence? Why is it essential? And in the world where a lot of our tasks are being automated, the best example here to give is of the bank. I remember when I started banking, we had a little book. In that book, you'd go to it was Post Bank. They would write money that has come in, maybe 10,000 shillings. Then you would withdraw 1,000 shillings. They would write there, on this day, you withdrew this much, 1,000 shillings is written there, and then you sign across it. Very, very detailed transaction. And then we were so happy when it became computerized. We didn't need to carry those books because if you lost that book, it was such a nightmare. And things became computerized and we were getting statements. I mean, it was a world of difference. But that world of difference can't even be described when we think about the way things are now, that you never have to step into a bank at all because your banking is all mobile. M-Pesa is there to ensure that you're paying for anything without a checkbook. You know, those days you used to write checks to pay. You go to buy clothes, you write a check, you pay. Everywhere you go, you are using some paper. So when you go to the bank, it is usually with a problem or usually with a task that requires you to speak to someone on the other side. Now, if this person has not honed the skill of emotional intelligence, which really is the foundation for how we are able to create interpersonal relationships, how we're able to create exceptional customer service skills, because at that point, that's all that matters. When I get into the bank right now, all that matters is how this person will be able to treat me in a manner that I feel valued, in a manner that I feel I can problem solve through whatever issue that I have. Because let's face it, there's no more that book. I'm no longer collecting or paying things through checkbooks. I'm not even writing standing orders. Even the loan application thing nowadays is all online. All I'm doing is seeing people because there's some problem that we are looking to solve. And so the art of being able to regulate, to be self-aware, to be aware of others, to be able to have authentic conversations becomes increasingly important, because the interaction that you're going to have every single day with someone on the other side, the result and the outcome of that interaction is going to be determined largely by how they show up to you, how you feel treated. Do you feel treated fairly? Do they listen to you with empathy? And those other tenets that come with emotional intelligence. So EI is no longer a nice to have skill. In fact, it is now the #1 skill to give to anyone, to support anyone at the workplace. Because when it comes to businesses thriving, it will be about how the asset of people is managed from the heart, no longer from the head. And in areas, especially like the finance sectors, the retail sectors, you're going to find that this is a place that will have the highest demand for people with high EI skills. So this research was done by Capgemini. You can actually Google it and you'll find it. And they are just a research institute that do a lot of researches on many things, not just emotional intelligence. They talk about skills, financial inclusion, DEI, many things, and other technical things. And this was done in 2019. So you can imagine it's a little bit outdated, but there are many other studies that support EI. How essential is EI? EI is not only essential for you to be able to navigate the world of work, but if you look at a lot of research again written about emotional intelligence and its benefits, usually people who are found to be higher or have invested in the skill of getting higher in EI, they tend to have a better work-life balance. They actually tend to enjoy success and therefore live lives of meaning. So they're more likely to have good health. They're more likely to have great relationships. And this was a study done by about some time back. And you know, the guys in the States, they get paid a lot of money just to play football, yeah? And money is never the issue. They're very successful in their own right. But the professionals and the athletes, and these are all great athletes, who are found to have greater emotional intelligence, were far more likely to have good health, great relationships, to avoid alcohol use and violence, and to do well at work, as well as enjoy a high quality of life. So it's not just about the world of work. It's about the ecosystem that supports you as a person as you're living. So a high quality life means that, of course, your moods are more often than not in the positive side. Obviously, you can't always be in the positive. You're more likely to be engaged with what you're doing. You're more likely to find the meaning and purpose in what you're doing. So these life success factors were predicted largely by the presence of emotional intelligence as a skill. And I could go on, and you could Google L'Oreal, you could Google many other studies that talk about, you could Google, of course, who we call the father of emotional intelligence, who talks about 90% of the time, the competencies of EI are the ones that predict a star performer who will manage well at a managerial level or at a leadership level. So EQ matters. of course, IQ matters because you need to know what you are doing. And if you think about the competencies of you as a person, you have to be competent with what you're doing. You have to have that base. And the second thing is, of course, you have to then have the confidence and the courage. And the confidence and the courage will be underpinned largely by how you're able to self-lead and to self-manage and to tap into opportunities where you can be mentored or coached in areas that you're struggling with. So having made that case for EQ and emotional intelligence, then I'm going to just talk about now the future world of work, where we see that in the beginning, and I think there's a guy called Julius Kimietich, he talks about this very well, where he talks about at the beginning, it was about mechanical production. It was about producing one piece of item. And then as we were producing one piece of item, we started thinking about, how can we produce many pieces of item? So we started looking at processes of mass production. And then we started thinking about those many, what's the quality of those many? So it was a more hands-on experience, it's the work of production. But as we went on, now we started applying our brains and said, okay, we're producing all these many people, but how can we then be able to be more efficient in terms of how, I think there's someone talking and interrupting our otherwise very nice conversation. So as I proceed, so we started using our intellect to understand how can we be more efficient? How can our return on investment be much better than it was for the same amount of labor? So here we're thinking with the head, how can we be more efficient? And then last but not least, in this age, what we're thinking about is really about how can we involve people? In fact, there's a certain place where we say it became all about marketing. When you think about learning as a skill, we talk about marketing. It's no longer about telling learners you must learn. You must be able to capture the hearts of learners so that they want to learn. When we look at the workplace, employee engagement is a big factor for us to measure. Are employees bringing themselves motivated, happy, energized, ready to commit themselves, off themselves intrinsically to the world of work? So we're looking at, okay, yes, we want to think through the processes. We're also still doing, but we have more of the heart and leading people from a point of influence rather than a point of making them compliant to what they need to do. So EI, more than any other factor, accounts for 85 to 90% of success at work. And I'm sure you know this because there is that guy, he might not have had any papers, but he has grown in his role. Yeah, he is that guy everyone finds easy to work with. He's that guy who's able to support people through problem solving. He's able to even be able to understand what he needs to learn. Or she, sorry, well, in this world I'm using him. That person who everyone knows they like and they can rely on and they can support and they're committed to doing what they need to do, and they have empathy. And you find them, especially in the more informal sectors of work, these are the people who tend to rise in that informal sector of work. So once you have the threshold competency, once you are able to do your work to a certain level, the rest is really how you're able to develop your emotional intelligence to support you. And this is because emotional intelligence really shapes our interactions with others. It shapes the understanding of ourselves. It really defines how and what we learn, and even if we even learn at all. It determines majority of our daily actions, and we will see why it does that in a moment. And it allows us to set priorities. So even before, and I think this is part of the books and the literature you read nowadays, even before you decide to do something that is great for your career, before you do all that, you'll have had to first have gone through an emotional process that will allow you to either be able to carry out that particular activity. For example, if I'm thinking of upgrading or rather upskilling myself, and I think I want to do a master's degree in whatever field, a lot of that process for me to decide whether I'm going to actually do that degree is very emotional. And that's why emotional awareness becomes very, very important. So EI becomes important for the quality of your relations, the well-being, the general well-being of yourself and others around you. It becomes very important whether we are partners, so makes us better partners, makes us better parents, makes us better siblings, and makes us better friends. And that's why we like saying that EI is game-changing both for business and then changing for people. So here, I and Irene, as she mentioned, are what we call Genos practitioners. So we speak from a background of a company called Genos International, and the work that they have done is primarily from the scope of emotional intelligence. So they develop programs around EI, they develop assessments around EI. And so if you would like to assess yourself and find out, okay, how am I doing in terms of emotional intelligence? Then these are the people that will allow you to do it. I see there's a question from Hannah Lunjalu saying that, how would you define emotional intelligence? We'll come to that in just a minute. But before we come to that, wherever you are, I want you to just, for a moment, indulge me in a short exercise, which is important for what we call raising your self-awareness. And I can see Luke has raised his hand up. I would maybe ask that we can ask our questions verbally at the end of the session. If you have any questions right now, please put them on the chat. And when you please join, just mute yourself so that everyone has a great experience when it comes to listening into this webinar. So I'm going to ask that you, wherever you are, I hope you're seated. If you're not seated, just stand for a little bit wherever you are. And for a moment, indulge me. I want you to close your eyes wherever you are, if you can, of course. If you can't, then just do the next exercise. I want you to soften your body, and you can feel your body, by the way. You'll see whether you're tense, so relax your hands. If you're seated, put them on your lap. Then I want you to start breathing in and breathing out. And I want you to feel the breath coming into your nostrils and to feel it coming out. As you do this, try and notice if you're able to do it first and foremost. Is it are you getting distracted by my voice, maybe, or other thoughts that are coming into your head? Or are you noticing your breath coming in and coming out? So coming in and coming out. Maybe even as you do that, you'll ask yourself, why am I really at this webinar? And then you can set an intention to listen in. I know it's important to get CPD points, but maybe listening to this webinar, it might give you one or two things that could be important. Then notice how many tabs in your mind are open. How many things are you thinking about right now? Like a computer, how many tabs are open? And of all those tabs that are open, which one can you actively shut for the next 30 minutes? Which one can you actively shut for the next 30 minutes and focus? Okay. So I'll ask you to stop the exercise now. If your eyes were closed, I'll ask you to open them. And then give me some comments. Give me some comments. What did that feel like for you? What thoughts were coming into your mind? Just write them on the chat. Feels refreshing. Another one. I felt relaxed. Relaxing. I was able to feel my breathing, close some unnecessary tabs. Thank you. Ability was uneasy since I was in the office. I paused and I looked back, and I'm back fully, heavenly, relaxed, closed a few tabs. I'm refreshed and curious to understand if genes influence EI and it can be a mental condition. Okay, we'll answer that in a while. Feels good, peaceful. Relaxed and refreshed. I think a lot of people are feeling relaxed and refreshed, peaceful. And then there's someone who says no change. That's also okay for no change. Very relaxing. Beautiful feeling, awesomely. All that mattered at that point was me. I felt a release of pressure, relaxed. So yes, it is relaxed. It is closing. It increases your awareness, especially if you focus on just the things I said, your breathing, you understand how many tabs are open. Yeah, someone said I even forgot about the economic status. That's true. Yes, I can see so many people. So that short exercise, I know sometimes people ask me, is this meditation? No, it's just a short exercise in taking a moment to be mindful as to where are you now? Where are you at this point? What's really disturbing you? And that's why it's an important exercise for you, not for anyone else. Especially when we get to that point where we start getting overwhelmed. And I'm sure you do this sometimes, maybe when you're angry and you want to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I will invite you to do this exercise this time around, but now I want you to try and remember something. I want you to try and remember in the last 24 hours, from 12 o'clock yesterday to 12 o'clock now, I want you to try and recall how many feelings you have experienced over the last 24 hours. You can write them down, or if you don't want to write them down, you can just note that you can note down the number, experience this feeling, experience this feeling, experience this feeling. So I will have a moment of silence and I will allow you to think and reflect how many feelings, and this is feelings, not thoughts, how many feelings have you felt over the last 24 hours? Yes. And see a few things coming through. There's love in the house, there's sadness. I'm sure there's also love from Valentine's. Congratulations, Edwin, for your newborn. There's hopelessness, tension, hope, sad and lonely. Let's hear some more people come in and give us worry, anxiety, joy, unsettled, overwhelming, love, mixture of feelings, yes, fear of the unknown, sometimes confidence, sometimes anxiety, sometimes hope, sometimes fear. Great things are coming my way, courageous, appreciated, disturbed at the same time, confused, hopeless, and anxious, tension, peace, anxiety, regret, happiness, anger. So thank you for sharing that. I wonder how many people were able to recall at least more than 5 feelings. You don't have to put it on the chat, but just a mental note to yourself. Are you able to recall 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 feelings over the last 24 hours? And then I also want you to, as you even write them down, how many of these feelings were pleasant? How many of these feelings were unpleasant? I'm looking at the chat and there are quite a few feelings that might cross over to the unpleasant side. And both feelings are, all feelings are, or emotions are valid, pleasant or unpleasant. And right now we're just going to speak about why they are there. But just try and figure out, of all the feelings I have written down or thought about, what is the majority? Do I have 70% unpleasant and 30% pleasant? Do I have 70% pleasant and 30% unpleasant? Do I have them in 50-50? And this is for you to really think through as yourself. Yeah. Thank you. So as we take through, just note down how many of those you have felt pleasant. Now, I will attempt to do a very short description. And if you've heard me say this before, just bear with me for the people who have not attended any one of the webinars that we host. But the science of emotions is really complex when you think about the neuroscience of emotions, but it can be summarized into the following. Every time, the emotional brain first is something that evolved many, many, many years ago. And it is a very primitive part of who we really are. And emotions are kind of like subconscious. They happen all the time in our brain. And as much as we have evolved, we still react to emotions like our forefathers did. That is like 10,000 BC, many, many years ago. In fact, we react to emotions like, I don't know what to call them, the Homo habilis or something like that. Those are the ones I can remember off the top of my head from the class that we learned. So every single time you experience an event, an emotion is triggered from the emotional brain. And depending on how you experience that event, if you experience that event as pleasant, then what will be triggered emotionally is a pleasant emotion. So when you experience an event, like, I like using a very basic example here, I don't even change it. I use it every single time I give a talk. When you walk into a lobby and you meet that askari who's normally over there, and they're smiling at you, they greet you, how are you today, how are you feeling, who have you come to see? They have a smile on their face. Of course, depending on your personality, and we all have different kinds of personality, of course, you will take that with a bit of pinch of salt. But the more someone is smiling, the more accommodative they are, the more you feel at ease, the more you feel welcome to that particular building, the more you start saying things like, oh, these staff are actually very professional. Yeah. Doesn't matter. It's just the experience that you're having. You're ready to say they're very professional. If they even make a mistake and they apologize and they're really sorry, and some of them might even go an extra step and compliment you on either your dress. So you're looking very nice today. How can we assist you today? And someone has gone out of their way to make sure that you're feeling comfortable. You experience a pleasant feeling. You engage with that person. You can actually talk to them a little bit more. And you experience that particular engagement as meaningful. You experience it as useful, as valuable. But if when you leave that desk, as you're walking towards the lift, you find someone who is lost and they tell you, excuse me, can you show me the office of, let's say the office of the CS, maybe at the bottom of some government building. Now, when you're leaving that other askari, you had feelings of meaningfulness, and you're more likely to engage in a conversation with this person who's lost. You're more likely to direct them to, okay, I don't know where it is, but you can ask that askari over there. In fact, I find them very helpful. They'll be willing to help you. You're more likely to have a conversation. But if you go to the same building and you experience those askaris we fear, mono words, very, very abrasive, they put you back, strip you down, tell you to remove all your things, ask for ID. It's really not the experience you're looking for. You're getting more and more agitated. You call them unprofessional. They don't know how to do things. Sometimes you yourself, depending on your personality, might start arguing with them, even if it doesn't yield any real value to you. And you start getting very frustrated and a bit stressed by the experience. So you do not experience that particular session as useful. These are everyday occurrences. And when you leave that desk after you've been able to put yourself together from all the frazzlement, and you meet the same person at the lift, and they're like, excuse me, where is the office of the CS? You're less likely than from the first instance to engage with this particular person. You might point them at the general direction, they can ask there, or maybe just tell them, I don't know, and move on. You really can't engage. And that is the explanation around an emotion that you experience somewhere else is informing a behavior to someone else who's not even involved with your experience in the first place. That's how fundamentally emotions drive us to certain decisions that we make. And so they will drive the decisions that we make, and they will also drive the behaviors that we choose to engage in. So emotions fundamentally drive decisions from a brain perspective. In fact, Google online and look for studies showing that if you are hurt in the area that experiences emotions, you'll find it difficult to make a decision. If you have ever read the book of Atomic Habits by James Clear, you will also find that he talks about it is emotions that drive your decisions. So I've written the book there, it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And your ability to engage in anything. Let's even talk about self-leadership now for one moment. Don't think about even the economic situation and everything, because everything that is around you, you have a lot more control over it than sometimes you let yourself think. And this is driven by the emotion that you're feeling. So if you're feeling inadequate, for instance, it will drive the decisions that you make towards how you speak to other people. It will drive the decisions sometimes of even what you choose to wear. Yeah. If you wake up sometimes in a certain way before you learn how to address yourself and lead yourself and allow yourself to experience different emotions and put yourself in a better place. Those days when you were younger and you woke up feeling bad, was the day you picked the worst part of your wardrobe to wear, to match your mood. And that was a decision that was made. So being aware of your emotion really helps you make better decisions. And a lot of time in the brain is devoted towards seeing, filtering those emotional decisions. Your emotion dictates the way that you behave. And I just gave the case of the guard. When we're feeling pleasant, we've had an experience with them that is pleasant, we're likely to say thank you. In fact, let's not even go far. When you're in a restaurant and you have a waiter who serves you exceptionally well and makes you feel valued, compliments you, the first thing you either say is that, hey, this is a very expensive restaurant. These people have been trained very well. They want a very big tip. You know what happens. And you're likely even to tip them. But what about that waiter, Yani, who is just brash, makes you feel frustrated, the food was late, maybe you had a hot date, it made you look some type of way. So it drives your behavior. And behavior is what allows you to connect to other people, to collaborate with other people. If you encounter someone who is brash, yeah, their behavior, that one that is, we call it antisocial, makes you get away from them. If you have a manager who is always shouting down on people, it is that behavior that is not allowing us to connect back with them. Every time we see them, we dive for the corridors and hide somewhere. If people withdraw, they hide themselves from a cocoon and they want to work at a corner somewhere. It is that behavior that does not allow them to connect back with us, because we're like, so that it is the behavior, and this behavior is informed by emotions. Maybe they don't like people. They don't experience pleasant feelings when they are with people, so they would prefer to be alone. That's a behavior, and that behavior then enables or disables the ability to connect and collaborate. And then last but not least, emotions fundamentally affect our performance. And this one, I think I don't even need to talk much about, because we know when we wake up and say, today I woke up which side of the bed, or today I'm feeling a certain type of way, or Leo, I haven't eaten, so I can't make this decision. You know, I'm feeling a bit lethargic, I'm feeling tired. And sometimes even those emotions we're feeling are being driven by something physiological, such as hunger. And more importantly here is that it has also been shown many a time that organizations or teams that promote high positive environments of purpose, they outdrive achievement of numbers, as in they overachieve in the things and objectives that have been set. But if they're constantly worrying, you know, you're worrying about Taxmanistan, you're worrying about the housing levy, you're worrying about your children, you're worrying about, you haven't learned how to self-manage to the point that you can reduce that anxiety, your performance is really wanting, and you possibly give yourself at even 30 or 40%. You cannot engage back at work. And if you're talking about the aspect of self-leadership, if you cannot bring yourself to work and to work meaningfully because you can't manage the processes around you, then you find that ultimately you're the one who loses. You lose out on the opportunities for being fronted for work that could grow you, you know, get you better positions, get you better opportunities. And sometimes what we end up doing inadvertently is blame the rest of the world for some of the things that are really within our control, because we cannot regulate our internal emotional climate. So put in a nutshell, emotions, pleasant emotions, will tend to broaden and build. When we experience pleasant emotions, we tend to see the world as a better place to be, a valuable place to be. If we like working in our teams, we look forward to achieving together. If we like our boss, we interact with our boss. If we like, and the word here I'm using is like, it's not about if I feel my boss is logically attuned to me. It is if we like, we say, you know, I like that guy. I like speaking with that guy. I like that woman. I like speaking with that woman, from a very emotional perspective. And then unpleasant feelings narrow and limit us. And even when we teach children emotional intelligence, we show them that every time they are experiencing unpleasant feelings, their ability to think logically is being reduced. It is why they'll throw a tantrum, because all logic has left the building, and now they're just reacting from a knee-jerk point of view. If you think about it in another way, your logical brain is what allows you to see the world through rational thought. So when you see someone who has had a little bit too much to drink, and the way that they're behaving, and you're sober, there's always a disconnect there. You're like, hey, how can that person do that? It's because you're looking at them through the rational brain. But someone else who's in the same equilibrium, they're very at peace with each other, you know. They're finding what they're doing is pretty rational. So even as we build feelings, sometimes even pleasant feelings can distract us, but unpleasant feelings can also make us very, very reactionary and do things that we didn't quite think that, I mean, is removed from what we call our personality. So usually what you see of people, the behaviors that you see of people are really as a result of some of the emotions that they are going through. And even the collective behavior that you see in teams are usually an indication of the emotional climate in that particular setting. There's a guy called Paul Kaufman. He says that, in fact, it is the results, it is the collective emotion of a particular group that is responsible for the values of that particular group, the way they feel. And you can put this down to if you are in a place where they feel that they are being treated unfairly, yeah, the way that they react to management, their behaviors and their value, or how they see the management is very different from someone who is who has pleasant feelings towards the same managers. So when we are uncertain, when we feel uncertain, when we feel stressed, when we feel worried, and when we feel fear, these are some of the behaviors that will manifest the things that we see. For example, if we have a culture of fear, we also notice that there's lack of ownership in some of the things that we are doing. There's always passing the buck because people are afraid. They're afraid of the repercussions of owning up, and that's why that's what we call psychological safety. That I have I feel I can take the risk to speak up and disagree openly about certain issues. Otherwise, if not so, then I will choose to blame. And then the reverse is also true, that if we are experiencing pleasant emotions, then we tend to have more constructive behaviors around them. So here it's just a simple illustration of when we engage people with purpose, when we are able to bring them back to what's the bigger goal? Where are you heading to? In fact, for example, when you're having a performance appraisal, instead of starting with, these are your results. You've done this and this well, you've done this and this wrong, blah, 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 blah. You're dealing with the now, the here at this particular moment. So that person is focused on all the things you're saying around that point. And sometimes it doesn't end up very well because they feel attacked. They feel sometimes it's unfair. But if you start the conversation, especially when we talk about leading or managing with a coaching mindset, if you start the conversation with, what do you want? How do you see your life in the future? If I asked you right now, and we're going through a performance appraisal, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be remembered as? So let's now look at your results. How is that enabling you or not enabling you to be where you want to be? It's a whole different conversation. We have moved from talking about personal information to seeking purpose. And so this person can engage with the process because it's informing them of how can they get to where they want to be? How can they get solutions to where they want to be? So that's about emotions and how primarily they drive behavior and what we see. So of that 24-hour experience, my question would be, how often do you think people typically experience pleasant or unpleasant feelings within a 24-hour period? You can put it on the chat. How often do you think that happens? Do you think it's more pleasant to unpleasant? Do you think it's more unpleasant to unpleasant? What do you think that is? Unpleasant, more unpleasant. That's Joanne Karungu. 50-50. Unpleasant, more pleasant. Unpleasant depends. Unpleasant, unpleasant, more pleasant. 50-50. It's more 50-50. Unpleasant. I think it depends on the kind of environment. Yeah, unpleasant. Majors, unpleasant. Okay, so thank you for all your answers. All great answers. So yes, it does depend. It depends a lot on the context and the situation. Some days there'll be pleasant feelings. Typically, others will have unpleasant. I remember one time going through this exercise with a team and they told me it's unpleasant in our place because of 1, 2, 3 things that were already happening. It was performance appraisal time. It was this and this and the other. And the reasons why you ask yourself these questions in the spirit of thinking with a wild view is to know, is this the right time to do some things? Is this the right time to communicate some items? So if your team or where you are back there is experiencing more unpleasant than pleasant, then you also have to ask. You also have to ask yourself, why are we experiencing more unpleasant feelings than pleasant? And do we really want to keep experiencing these unpleasant feelings? Because at the end of the day, as we've seen, they're not very, very productive. I'm seeing some questions on the chat. I will answer them as we go. But the first one is, this one here says, whose responsibility is it to keep emotions in check during unfair accusations with a boss? And we'll tackle that very shortly. So you do control the thoughts that follow an emotion. and you have a great deal of say in how you react to an emotion, as long as you are aware of it. So emotional intelligence starts with that ability to be aware. And that's the biggest superpower you have when it comes to growing the skill of emotional intelligence. If you can name it, if you can label that emotion, if you can start becoming aware of it, if you can start seeing it for what it causes you to do or to be, if you can start looking at the world view of what that emotion, how that emotion plays into where you want to be and what you want to do, then you can start being able to have more productive responses to the way that you react to emotions. So even with using this particular quote over here by Travis Bradberry, I'll say this. This question is, whose responsibility is it to keep emotions in check? This is a question from the ground. Whose responsibility is it to keep emotions in check during an unfair accusation with the boss when they tell you to shut up? It is your responsibility to find a way of dealing with that situation, but it is your responsibility to keep or to regulate your emotions, because you do not want to be the one who happens to be viewed. You know, they say when two people argue, no one will know the difference. So it is for you to understand what you need to do to respond in a manner that gives you a productive result. The word here being productive result. But you also need to ask yourself a question further, because you can't keep quiet all the time. And in fact, herein lies the first myth of emotional intelligence that we're going to tackle later, that people high in emotional intelligence are nice. You know, they don't yell, they don't shout. That's a myth I have found that is also used against people, because when someone is able to be assertive and hold their ground, you're told, oh, you're not emotionally intelligent. And that's a big myth. People who are emotionally intelligent will look at that situation and ask themselves, why have I been keeping quiet? Is there maybe a skill in handling difficult bosses that I am yet to learn? Do I need to go and approach a mentor so that they can show me how I can handle this particular boss in a better way? Because there's always a way. These difficult bosses are not the first ones we're going to have, and neither are they going to be the last. So if you consider that you're going to be meeting difficult people for the rest of your life, then you may as well just get better at handling them. Yeah. So if you ask yourself the right questions, then you will start equipping yourself with the necessary skills you need to be able to deal with such situations effectively. If it means you being assertive at a certain point, respectfully, then you have to be assertive. And you know what? People who accuse you angrily, people who are bullies in the workplace, they thrive because people also are not able to stand up to them in an effective, meaningful manner. Yeah. So it's an art, it's a skill. Look at the people who are able to do it effectively, learn from them, understand what those components of things are. Everything, almost everything in life is something that you can look up and learn more of. So I'm seeing there are also some comments about you do not have control over other people's emotions, but you can manage your own. And that's definitely true. What's in your realm of influence? I'm seeing someone saying, how do you handle negativity yet be emotionally intelligent? So you first, like I said, emotional awareness. This negativity, what is it? Label it. What am I calling negativity? How is it making me feel? You know, sometimes I think the other thing that greatly affects us is that we expect quick wins. We expect you're going to be able to handle negativity today and it's over. It takes a process. It takes a while. And that's why even as we grow older, we're able to handle some of these situations with more finesse. But you should not hire. If you have a problem about negativity, explore it, get a coach, get a mentor, especially if it's something that is really bothering you at the present place and you're not feeling you're able to tackle it effectively. Is anger an intelligence, especially in extremely abuse of seniors, physical or verbal? It's not an intelligence, it's an emotion. All emotions are valid and all emotions are there to tell us something. They give us data if we use them as points of data. So if you find people who you feel are being extremely abusive, whether they're senior or junior, it doesn't really matter. What position does that put you in? Yeah. And what avenues do you have to be able to talk about these particular things? Sometimes because we do not deeply ask ourselves such questions, either because of our past, maybe even traumas, or the way that we have been wired to react to certain things. Maybe someone, you always told keep quiet during this and the other. And so when something happens, you always keep quiet because that's what you know. So being able to interrogate, we know different right now. You can read about workplaces, how they're meant to thrive. We know different. Just because some people tend to focus more on dwelling on the older way of things does not mean you should also do the same. So it is never right for extreme abuse, or whether it is verbal or physical, but then it is also never right to keep quiet also when you see other people going through that. Gather yourself the courage, get yourself the competency of being able to speak up. It is a competence. Learn the confidence and learn the courage. And you will see that the places that you are yourself have a sort of contagion that people feel safer around you, and you're able to handle those difficult conversations. So narcissistic workplaces and all that, there's a solution, and there are things that you can you can equip yourself with. How do you handle a bully? There is a solution for all those things, but you have to go and look for the information. You have to go and do the work. How do you handle bosses who don't acknowledge you, yet you are at par with your work? Why don't you call out the fact that they don't acknowledge you? Again, it is you're being driven by an emotion there. What is that emotion that's driving you? But a lot of the times you don't want to interrogate and figure out what emotion is driving this decision I'm making, not to interrogate why my boss is doing this and this and the other. Why can't I go and sit with my boss and find out, why did you rate me like this and I think I did this? Maybe it was also fair in their eyes, and it's because you've never asked them. So why is it that you don't want to deal with that particular conversation? What informs you that that's the way things are done? If all these decisions you're making, allowing a bully to thrive, allowing narcissistic places to thrive, they're being driven by something that you're feeling. And that feeling, if you really think about it, there's a place that it's coming from. And that's why we say that as you're growing in terms of your emotional intelligence, you're also getting better at managing your emotional health. You're also getting better at managing the things that allow you to grow in well-being. And we talked about people who are higher in emotional intelligence. They also tend to have what? Better well-being. They can manage themselves better. So all these difficult conversations, you have control over all these difficult situations. When it comes to things like bipolar, all I normally say about bipolar is don't label someone bipolar because you yourself want to label them bipolar unless they have a certificate from the hospital saying that they're bipolar. Maybe it's just extreme personalities that you feel you are not able to control. So I think if someone is truly bipolar, then they're not even supposed to be there in the first place. You need to point that out. Maybe they need to get medical help because you won't be able to help them. Human resource can't help them. They need help from a medical professional to sort out their issues. So when you find systems, they say, how do you deal with a scenario where the only system of survival is by gossiping and giving false information? I don't think if you're the one gossiping, I think you should stop. If you're the one giving false information, I think you should stop. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Did I give you Parwaya, Elsie, and
please mute yourselves. But if you're in a position where you feel that this is what's happening, it means that there's a lot of information that's not coming to the forefront. It means that most likely the trust levels in that particular place are very low, and people are now using survival mechanisms. So again, there are programs online, there are things you can do. You can talk to professionals who can help give you the tools to grow more trust within teams, grow more trust within your organizations. For example, one of the ways of growing trust is to have informal sessions with your team, not sessions around the work. And sometimes when I say this, guys say, oh, but guys will know about my life and what I do, and I don't think that's appropriate. And I think that the more you want to hide, the more people know about you. And that's just the truth. All the things that we try to hide about our lives, people already know. And I think it is false to imagine that we are having any advantage by not really mingling with the people around us in a manner that is respectful, getting to know more about them. That's even how you find out who's struggling, who's not struggling, starting conversations, maybe at meetings with how did you show up today? What's happening in your life today? Those conversations moving forward in the world of work, as much as it seems maybe they may be far removed right now from where you are, they actually make a big difference in terms of how the teams will grow to trust each other. And the grapevine or the gossip can start reducing. Because as long as people feel they don't trust, there will always be gossip in the grapevine. So we have, okay, I'll answer these two questions and then I'll go back to the presentation. Is avoiding negative people emotionally intelligent? Avoiding at any situations is really not an effective way of dealing with situations. But especially if these particular people are in your life constantly. So if it's a colleague at work and they're in your life constantly, you have to find a way to be able to work that relationship out. That's why sometimes you find HR will put two people in a room and lock them up and tell them, sort out your issues. So avoiding is not really a solution unless you're stopping a particular conversation because you can feel yourself getting overwhelmed and you need time to think so that, again, you don't make a reaction that is out of character or make a wrong decision. But then you always come back to these conversations. When we try and suppress emotions or when we try and not deal with issues, they still surface back. They still surface back to us. And it is better to deal with people at the workplace effectively because then you have a sustainable, remember I talked about sustainably leading yourself. You have a sustainable relationship with them. You know, when you need something, you can go directly to them. When you need to collaborate, you can go directly to them. But if you're avoiding them, then it means that your relationship is not really sustainable. What can HR practitioners do to improve EI, especially as we do with people who are emotional beings? The first is to raise awareness. And awareness is through forums like this, webinars, trainings, invite speakers to speak to people about emotional intelligence, conduct intentional webinar series. I have worked with clients who have had intentional series running for their organization over a span of maybe 2 to 3 months, just on the topic of EI. And awareness is curative. And I've actually have one organization that made the deliberate effort of doing that at various levels of their management with excellent results. Because sometimes the truth is people are not aware. In fact, most of the time, it's a gap in terms of awareness. Yes, there are tools out there to help you gauge where you might be. We actually have a tool called the ECI Index. It's available. If you reach out to IHRM, they'll be able to have it run for you. And it just takes the emotional climate of an organization or even of a team, if you don't want to do it for the whole organization, and where you're at in terms of your emotional climate. So that is something that is very doable, and HR practitioners can be more intentional in terms of being able to look for ways to intentionally deliver this particular information to the people that they are dealing with in terms of talent. I will answer the next question between what is the difference between EI and AI. So that, yes, we can have a discussion at a different stage. AI is really to do with AI has nothing to do with what we're speaking today. We're speaking about the human aspect of emotions. And artificial intelligence now has been the development of how to do things and allow machine learning and things like that we're able to be more effective with how we handle information, disseminate information. Generally, the way the world is working now, I will also invite you to Google what AI is, artificial intelligence. So without, let me now maybe move back to my presentation because I see we only have about 10 more minutes left. What I would like to say in the area of emotional intelligence and why it is so important for you as HR to think about it as a foundational skill. It is not about, it is not something, it is like what? If having EI and something that underpins your culture sets the stage for behaviors that will lean into the following things. So one, driving change. We are constantly driving change. Today is change, tomorrow we've changed the system, today you've changed the boss, today you've changed where you're working, you're moving where. And managing change is an emotional process. We either get with the process, with the way things are going, get with the flow, as we say, because of how we are made to feel. So leading change and driving change by first allowing people to develop self-awareness, develop emotional awareness, develop awareness of others. And in that awareness, we're talking about even thinking about people's different personality styles. My personality style may be one that is easier to deal with when it comes to change. Someone else's personality style is harder to accept change, especially when it doesn't have a process to it. But if you think everyone is going to take it at the same level, and then you start punishing the people who are taking it at a much slower level, it doesn't give you the effect that you desire. So there's been a lot again written about how you can have EI incorporated in terms of evolutionary change. When it comes to strategy execution, there's an article I think I wrote at the IHRM magazine, and I talked about some of the things that have been written by Harvard Business Review, some of the what is it called, research papers that have been done that say that when people are aware, when they are attuned with their emotions, they actually not only make better strategic decisions, because when you are aware of how emotions are driving your decision, you can make a better decision. And mark my words, your decisions are driven by emotions. But when you're aware is when you can make a difference. When you're not aware, you just make a difference. You just make the decisions. So even when it comes to strategy execution, when you're aware what people are actually feeling, you can be able to deliver better, because you are leaning more into the present situation, vitu kwa ground ziko hivi, not an imagined way that you feel things should be running. So if you want to tell people we're moving from Kenya, we're going to Uganda, and you're really listening to them to feel, how do you guys feel about this decision? The answers they give you back allow you to give better responses and address the actual problems that they're facing. But if you don't do that, if you don't lean in and listen with empathy, and you just decide, we're moving, so you get, the process is tedious. You get people pocket vetoing, others have not moved, others give excuses about their children, others could have moved, but they really don't care. So listening to people, allowing people to, listening to the emotional climate around the people. And it's what we call empathy. And empathy is not feeling oye. It's not sympathy. Empathy is more about connecting to understand how people are feeling. And for you to really understand how people are feeling, you must first understand that the way that they're feeling is okay. When you have those discussions, someone tells you, I'm feeling rather low. And you're like, that people without work, the guys who don't have jobs. So wewe unakaa tu hapo unasema you're feeling low na kuna watu hawana kazi. That's what we call sympathy. It's not empathy. You don't know why that person is feeling low. Or nimekileleshwa na boss, nasikia hivi na hivi na hivi, bora uhai boss, bora. Such things, at least. So those statements kind of negate what other people are feeling. But leaning into conversations is more like, okay, how are you feeling? Why are you feeling like that? Then you as a person get to really understand, what is disturbing this person? Once you know what is disturbing them, then you can have a better answer towards what you need to address so that something can move. So the story of compliance, tufanye, you'll end up spending so much time because you're not really addressing what the people are feeling. And we've seen even how these things when it comes to the big companies that have fallen, you know, even Boeing, it came to light that some people, you know, they would try and address the issues that were coming on. But what would happen? They would be shut down. Some of them were fired. No one bothered to really, really listen. Yeah, that is the space of creating authentic conversations. And at the end of the day, it came back to bite the very people who are not listening. So it doesn't matter how small your team is. It doesn't matter how big your team is. The space of empathy is necessary if you're going to do the right thing. So I'm talking about engaging generations, whether they're millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, the art of really listening. What is this person paying attention to? Helps you manage multi-generational workforces from the baby boomer to the other one down there. And that's why you say, you cope with everyone. You're able to go through everyone. You're able to speak to everyone. Why? Because you're able to give time to everyone. And before you speak, other people feel like they have spoken. And that's actually what we call the art of authentic conversations. That you actually acknowledge that as much as I am allowed to be who I am, I also have to allow others to be who they are. It's not easy. And like I said, these things are not done like in one day. You have to first set the intention that, yes, I want to be an empathetic leader. It's not a decision of tomorrow. It's probably a decision of the rest of your life. But with every single day, you can see the conversations you did not show up with empathy. You can see the ones that at least you tried to show up with empathy. You can see the ones that you were a total idiot sometimes and, you acted completely out of character, and you are kind to yourself and say, Apple, we need to find a solution for that. But that is all in self-awareness. You're not being defensive about some of the things that you've done and trying to make up or make excuses for them. You're actually owning to your own weaknesses and your own challenges, because only you can rectify them. And so when it comes even to innovation, cultures that have those abilities, I remember one of the things that was shared somewhere is that psychological safety in teams and organizations is not possible without emotional intelligence. If we don't have the art of being able to be aware of others, aware of ourselves, we cannot then practice and develop the art of psychological safety. So, and psychological safety is a big requirement when it comes to innovating. And then, of course, agile leadership, being able to adjust your style so that it fits well with others. Sometimes when I speak about this, even myself, when I was much younger, I used to be like, why should I adjust my style for someone else? Someone else needs to adjust their style for me. I mean, surely, this is how I was made, and me, I'm focusing on results. So it takes time, but agile leadership is not about the other people around you adapting to you. It's about you really adapting to other people. And then, of course, we talked about mental health, the ability to introspect, be self-aware, enough to understand when you yourself are struggling, who you need to see. Sometimes, even when we talk about, for example, self-management, self-management are not really things that are cast in rocket science, as I like to say. They are very small things that we do every single day. And so for us, and I had someone here talking about the general certification. Yes, we run the general certification that empowers human resource professionals such as yourselves to really understand EI, to understand how EI drives culture, how it drives strategy, how it even drives the achievement of a company's objective. And I think Irene and team will be sharing that information with you to see if you can actually get on board and just register yourself for that certification. It's a really useful certification to have. I'm going to ask Irene to share. But if we talk about generals, we talk about 6 components, and I'll just go through them very quickly. Self-awareness is really the beginning. The awareness of yourself, your personality, your emotions, how are you feeling, cultivating that. And then awareness of others is the second thing. Am I aware of how other people are feeling? Am I aware of their opinions towards this particular thing? Am I aware of their personalities? That one is a results-driven personality. This one is more of a process-driven personality. Am I being authentic? And authentic here, am I being genuine? Do people read me and they see me and they take me for who I am? Or, it's possibly why we say character meets where you meet your character, the one that people know and what you know about yourself. You may say you're very authentic, but that's not what people are talking about when they talk about you. So are we having authentic conversations? Are we allowing psychological safety for debates? When it comes to emotional reasoning, are we paying attention to the way our values and beliefs are driving conversations, to the way our emotions are driving conversations? I may be arguing with you today, but you're arguing from a point of church. Me, I'm arguing from a point of money. Because we are not interrogating that, we will never meet somewhere halfway. And so it is important to just be able to see and understand, how can we be more expansive? How can I ask you questions like, where are you coming from? Why do you think like that? Yeah, because me, I'm not understanding where you're coming from, rather than build the argument. And then self-management. I like to think that without proper self-management, it is difficult to practice the other competencies, because self-management is about being resilient, and being resilient is not about taking in a lot. It's about really guarding your well-being. It's about simple things like, am I eating right? Am I sleeping enough? Am I exercising? Yeah. Am I drinking too much alcohol or caffeine or whatever it is? Am I allowing myself personal time to reflect? Am I praying? Am I ascribing to a spiritual being? Am I centering myself with my thoughts and decluttering myself? How is my environment? Can I ensure that I am also saving enough? Looking at my finances, being self-aware of my finances enough to make drastic measures in Turkmenistan, even if it means that I have to downgrade. Yeah, which is sometimes difficult, because again, there's another emotion driving you for you not wanting to downgrade, and you want to pass it on to everyone else. Yeah, do I need to change my kids' schools for that matter? Am I saving enough so that I can have a financial change in my circumstances, should that happen? So all these things are about self-management. If you don't self-manage well, then resilience is not something you can cultivate. Because when life hits you, and it hits you, it doesn't have it doesn't have favorites. It will hit you. It will hit you today. It will hit you tomorrow. You have to be able to have enough in you to be able to bounce back, because you will go down. But the thing is to be able to bounce back. So resilience is not the ability to take on too much. It's the ability to remain, to be able to bounce back. And that happens when you have invested in yourself and you're taking care of yourself. And then last but not least, how are you inspiring performance? How are you being an influencer? How are you using the aspects of just that ability to influence others by who you are, the conversations you have, the effective means of dealing with difficult things or items, the ability to process emotions you feel towards other people and to tackle those effectively, the ability to even tell yourself, I need a coach here, I need a mentor here, I need to go and take this course here to help me grow to what I want to see of myself. And so some of the things around EI is not charisma. It's not about being charismatic. Guys look at someone who's charismatic and they say, oh, that person is high in emotional intelligence. That is not the full EI. It's not about being charismatic. It's not about being nice, so that when someone holds their ground and says, I'm sorry, I'm not able to engage in this right now, you're like, that person doesn't have emotional intelligence. Because you have to be saying no. When you're angry, you have to be able to express your anger, because if you suppress your anger, then you're inviting other things. The more you suppress your emotions, the more you're likely to get into other issues of well-being, because you're not handling your emotional health well. So you must be able to express that feeling, but you must express it effectively. I think it was Aristotle who says, anyone can be angry, but to be angry to the right degree, with the right person, not that you get angry in the office and then you go and take it off with your kids, at the right time, yeah, with the right tone. That is a skill that not everyone has. And then people high in EI are manipulative. No, they understand the following thing, that you have to be able to understand, perceive people, understand them, so that then you get the most out of them. So someone asked, what is emotional intelligence? We summarize it as this. It is the ability to perceive, to express, to reason with, and manage emotions in both yourself and with others and in others. So applied at the workplace, it's more about how we use emotions to achieve desired results. Explanation best. It is the ability to perceive emotions, to access and generate emotions so as to assist thought, to understand emotions so as to promote emotional and intellectual growth. And all that is not possible without you first being emotionally aware, without you first being self-aware, without having that moment to think through what drives you, what are your emotional triggers, what are your default reactions, and how can you make more intelligent decisions when it comes to using your emotions, both to enhance your behavior, to enhance your decisions, and to enhance well-being. So with that, I know it is now 2 o'clock sharp, and I've come to the end of the conversation. I can't see any more questions on the chat. Let me see. But if you have any questions, please feel free to put them on the chat right now. I can see someone said here, a bit on inspiring performance. So inspiring performance is really about understanding what kind of environment you create, you as yourself. When you're self-aware and you understand your personality, the second part of self-awareness is to understand the impact of who you are. So if I say, for example, I am loud and aggressive, that's okay. But do you understand what that loud and aggression looks like? So to be able to inspire performance, you must be able to understand that if you're too loud and aggressive with the people around you, they might not really want to give you feedback. And feedback is important for them to grow. They might not be able to come on board and ask you questions. And that is important for them to be able to do the right thing. If you're not holding bad performance into account, you're letting some people get away with murder and others are not. I mean, people are seeing that you're not being a fair leader. Again, you will not be able to inspire performance. If you're not practicing empathy, it means you might not be paying attention to the areas you're needed the most and the areas possibly that people don't need you. And that is in line with what we call equity. Around you, there are some people who will need your support more, and it is okay, than others. But you also have to be able to explain this so that people don't think you're playing favorites and that everyone is seeing everything for what it is. It is just a fair distribution of resources. So that's what inspiring performance is. Now, I know I haven't tackled so many things just because of time. And what I was trying to do is just really give an introduction around what emotional intelligence is, and then also give a short version of what the competencies around emotional intelligence is. EI is a vast topic. We teach it. We have a program with IHRM that's being delivered, I believe, in June, and it's going to take about 3 days, where we put a deep dive into all those 6 competencies: self-awareness, awareness of others, authenticity, and we help you understand what they actually mean for you as a person first, and then secondly, from an organizational point of view. We tackle mental health under the self-management aspect of the conversation. And so we talk about all these competencies. And once you're done with the 2.5 days, it really wouldn't be justice to sit here and try and attempt to speak more than I really have. What I can do, and I know that IHRM will do it, is to just send a few links to some videos that you can then now proceed to watch. So when it comes, how do you manage poor performance with EI? I would invite you to please register for that particular course. I think it will be here in Nairobi, I'm not wrong, but Milka will give more information. Or I invite you to subscribe to IHRM or even to Profiles International, and you can receive our newsletters, and they have a lot more information that you can read in terms of what EI is. I think without that, maybe you'll allow me to take it back to Okay, Hamid said, please clarify my takeaway that emotional intelligence is generally being able to be rational with emotions. I think that's a fair way of putting it. It's about not negating them, but being aware of them and being, yeah, I would say pretty much spot on. Thank you. So thank you so much, Catherine. I think I want to hand it back to you to close the session. Catherine, over to you.
Thank you so much, Vicky. Thank you so much, Vicky, and everyone else for the contributions that you have made. The chats have been very vibrant, and we feel like we have all been in the same room trying to gather as much as possible as we could get from Vicky. That was quite an enlightening presentation. Thank you so much, Vicky. For those asking whether they'll get the presentation, this is available on YouTube. We have shared the link on the chat, so you can access it anytime from the YouTube link that we have shared. So I want to appreciate everyone who was able to join this particular webinar. It is our second, and we'll keep doing this every other week, same time on Fridays. So for the pointers that we have received, if you want to go back to any of them, just to remind yourself what was discussed or what was shared, remember the YouTube link is on the chat, so you can pick it and save it from there. So for us, it's just to say thank you so much also for keeping time. We look forward to seeing you again next week on Friday. And we hope that you'll be joining us for our next webinar. The other thing is on the expounding on emotional intelligence. This was just a tidbit of what you can get from the main events. And I've shared our calendar for those of us who have not been able to see it before. It is part of the chat, so you can download that from our website as well, just to see when we will be having a more elaborate training on emotional intelligence. So what we'll be doing in this webinars is just give you a tidbit of what is yet to come in the main training sessions. So thank you so much. Without taking any more of your time, I would perhaps ask one of us to just say a word of thanks as well as pray for us as we wind up. Those whose questions or comments were not answered, perhaps we just need to say we appreciate you and we hope we will have more time to respond to them in the future. So perhaps we can have a volunteer who can be able to pray for us as we wind up. Anyone?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's pray. Everlasting Father, we thank you for giving us the gift of hearing, the gift of learning, and the life this morning, this afternoon. As we break, Lord Father, may you be able to give us enough power, enough wisdom to be able to implement this that we have learned in our respective workplaces. We thank you and we bless your holy name, for in Jesus' name we have prayed and believed. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. See you next week on Friday, same time.
Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. Bye.
Amen.
Is it linked?
The link, please. Can you repost? Can someone repost the link, please?
And